Hello everyone, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. And as you can see, we have the grey mat out, so that means only one thing. It's a beginner's part of the beginner's series, or building better models for beginners, whatever. In this video, I'm going right back to basics with tools, and what I've decided to do is make this video so that I can refer to it in upcoming videos. So if I'm doing a beginner's build series, I don't have to cover tools. I can just, at the beginning, say, look at the link down below. I can link this video, and then this will be the video for you to go to. So I'm going to look at tools going from the sort of basic and then up to the sort of not more advanced, but basically what I use. Now, I'm not saying that what I show you here is the best or what you should use. This is what I use. There are many people with different preferences. It's like some people don't like liver, some people would eat liver every single day. It's all down to taste and personal preference, and the tools I'm going to show you and the opinions I'm going to portray are of my personal opinion only and nothing else. There is no scientific backing to any of it or anything. But I will cover, cost or comparable costs, value, robustness, longevity, and that sort of thing. Other people will have different opinions, and they will no doubt comment below the video. So by all means, go and look at those comments, and unless people are rude, I'll put all the comments up. But basically, other people have different opinions, as I say. So go and look at the other comments. If you, like for instance, if I show you a saw and you think, I like the look of that saw, but there's no way I want to spend that, you may well find that there's somebody commented down below, and it will be, I also use this saw, which is much cheaper, blah, blah, blah. So there we go. So we're going to start the video with, we'll sort of break it down into categories. And the first category we're going to look at is cutting. So I'm going to try and cover everything in this first part of the video with regard to cutting. So cutting decals, cutting parts off the sprue. We're going to look at knives. We're going to look at cutters. We're going to look at snips, saws, all sorts of different things. So we'll start off by looking at knives. Now, obviously, when you start, you need to start with something basic, or you can go and get one of these little sets that has a little knife or whatever in there. But I would suggest the best way to go to begin with is with a scalpel. So this is a Swan Morton. What you get here is a handle. This is a Swan Morton number 3 handle. You can see on the end there, it has a number 3. Okay, so this is the small, I'm not sure it's the smallest, but it's the smallest I've got, and it's also got some glue on it there. So that's your scalpel handle, and then you can buy your Swan Morton blades from Amazon or whatever that fit them. And the reason I like these so much is the blades are relatively cheap. Okay, as you can see, they're very easy to fit. All right. The other nice thing about them is they don't roll around. You get some knives like this one here with the round handle, and they'll roll off the bench or whatever, and they sometimes can be quite difficult to control if you're trying to hold it, whereas this is flat, so it doesn't roll around. The only downside to this is sometimes they can be quite awkward to pick up, because there's not a lot, especially for someone like me who bites their nails. They can be quite awkward to pick up, but you can actually get them with a like a handle on them, or you can indeed roll some tape around them or something, but I find that tends to go sticky. So there's your Swan Morton handle. That's your number 3, and then you've also got the number 4, which, as you can see, is larger. Okay, it's thicker, it's fatter, it's slightly heavier, but it also holds a bigger blade. You can see that this one here is a number 23. Okay, so you can see that I cannot physically fit that blade onto there. It won't physically go, and likewise I can't physically fit that blade onto there. It won't go. So that's the number 4. Now, the thing is with a number 4, it's all well and good having it, but I think your choice of blades is more restricted, particularly when you start looking on places like Amazon. You have certain people have some sales on because they've got a load of one type of blade they want to get rid of or something. But I buy mine in boxes like this. This is a box of 100 10As. This is my favourite blade, is that one there. And they come in little foil packs like so. Okay, so you get one of those out, you put your box away, and you tear open the foil pack, just like so. And then within there, look at that, isn't it typical? Hey, because that's never ever happened to me before. It's because I tore it the wrong way, I expect. That has never happened to me before. But there, in there, you've got you've got a little foil pack, and in there you've got 5 blades wrapped up in paper. Obviously it's non-sterile because I'm not a surgeon. And then there's your blade in there, all wrapped up nice and fresh, ready for you to use. So that's how they come. You can also get them like this. This is the other blade I use, which is again in a Swan Morton number 3 handle. This is the number 10 blade, so 10 and 10A, easy to remember. And these, again, this is 100 blades, but they come in single packs. So you have one blade in there, and then you tear open the end, and your blade, as you can see, is in there. Okay, so it just depends how they come. Just look around on Amazon and find the cheapest ones. There are cheaper manufacturers of blades that they make blades that fit these handles. I actually got some and I sent them back. They were slightly cheaper. I bought them because the Swan Morton wasn't available at the time. They were a different manufacturer, but they fit the handle, and it was this shape here, the number 10 I had. And let's just say I used this blade for a month. That's about as sharp the new ones were that I got from Amazon. So I sent them back and bought some Swan Mortons. They were awful. And I've seen other people say the same. The other thing is with the cheaper ones, they do tend to break. They're not very strong at the best of times because, as you can see, they don't have a very large area of material either side of that slot. You can see it's quite thin there. And if you start really pushing down hard on them, they will tend to shatter. You need to be careful of them going in your eyes. Look at that, because the camera's on that one, doesn't want to go back on. If you are going to do a lot of heavy duty work, probably get one of these. Okay, so that's your Swan Morton. You can also get the round type Swan Morton with the ordinary blades in it, but you can get those in a little set. I've got a set up there, but it's got a load of stuff on top of it, so I'm not going to show you that now. But that's my choice of knife, and that's what you'll see me use in all my builds. The other most common is, we have here, this is XL, and you can get X-Acto, and you'll get lots and lots of cheap copies which look exactly the same. And what this basically is an aluminium handle. I'll show you on this one because I know the blade will go in easier. What you've got is an aluminium handle with a twisty end, and you can see that on there what happens is the blade goes in, and as you tighten it up it collapses and crushes and grips the blade. You could also use it for holding drills and stuff. The blade just goes in there, and then you've got your knife. As I say, they tend to roll away. They roll off your bench all the time, which is no good if you like me, you modelling barefoot or just socks on. You're going to be cutting your feet all the time. The blades are a lot more expensive, but they are bigger and they are stronger. So for really heavy duty stuff, this is the way to go. You can also go even more over the top if you want to. And here's a blade with a big handle on it. So I mean, there you are. You can really get down and dirty with that one. But that's the X-Acto XL. I'm not sure if any of these are X-Acto. You see, these are just rip-offs because they've got no name on them at all. But as I say, you get X-Acto, XL, all sorts of different companies. Be wary of some of the cheaper copies. They have plastic ends. Look carefully at the ends. What they do is they make this piece here in plastic, and you can imagine how good that is. Yeah, I even had one once and it was made of rubber. So yeah, obviously it's cheaper to mold that than to actually turn it, thread cut it, mill the slots in and everything. It's cheaper just to mold it. So therefore you look at on Amazon, you're looking for a knife and you think you see that one there for $12.99, and there's one next to it looks exactly the same and it's $3.99. Look at why. There's always a reason why. Okay, so that's your XL type. Okay, XL, X-Acto, whatever. A lot of people like to use these. I personally prefer the Swan Mortons. And the other one I've got is here. Now these were given to me, and these are Alpha, and these are made by they're Japanese, and this is called an Alpha design knife. So you can see here we've got a very small handle. It's made in Japan. And we've got a tiny little blade that goes in there. and you can see we've got this little sort of vice arrangement that opens up. Okay, so you've got this tiny little blade which is like a parallelogram, and it's only got a cutting edge on one side, and that blade slots into that groove in there, or not, as the case may be. Okay, and then we just tighten it up. We've got it out of line there. We just tighten that up, the collet pulls down on the blade and holds it nice and securely. Now, it's a fairly strong little knife, but one of the problems I found with it, and I really don't know why, I can't put my finger on it. If you're cutting along the edge of a rule or something, if you're trying to cut some plastic card and you're cutting on the edge of a rule, it tends to wander. I don't know why, it must be the way I hold it or something. But I can see no reason for it. It's a lovely little knife. It's a great little, small little thing for getting in small places and everything. As I say, I have that issue with it wandering. And you've also got this type here, which has got a pointy end on it. And this is really handy for doing reviews and pointing stuff out. But again, you can see on there, it says Alpha. It's like the Fiat badge. It says Alpha, and it's made in Japan. So that one is that one there with the cap on the end. And then that one came with this little thing here, which is wonderful. Again, it's got the Alpha name on it. And it's designed so you put your waste blades in there. And then in here you have a load of new blades. Okay, and they're in packs, as you can see, like that. Okay, so very, very clever little design. Great for, you know, carrying around if you take your stuff around the country when you're staying in hotels or business or whatever. Great little thing to put in your suitcase, that wouldn't it, or in your bag. You know, so much safer than having one of these things in there. But really, really nice. We've also got this one here, which is, again, a fantastic little design. The knife goes in there, so it's protected. And then here we have this box here, which we put our empty blades in. I can't think now how the blades go in there. They do go in there. How do they go in? I cannot remember for the life of me. I cannot remember how they go in. But anyway, the blade, you put your worn out blades in there, and then in this side here you can see you have, oh, there we go. Once you lift that up, another clever design. Once you lift that up, you've got a slot there for your blade to go in. That's your used blade, and then there's your new one. And you've got a little pointy tool there that you can also put in there to turn it into a little pointed tool. So very handy indeed, and fantastic design. So that kind of covers it on the knives. There are other knives out there, as I say. There's all sorts of really expensive knives, and there's all sorts of really cheap knives. Many of you have probably seen the little plastic Swab Morton handle with the little knob on the side. They're pretty good. And as I said, there's lots and lots of different things, but they're just 3 different styles, 3 different manufacturers that I've got here. And as I say, those are my preferred for various reasons. I just like them. They're economical. They have no real downside other than they are a little weak. But if I do need something real heavy duty, then I would saw it anyway. I wouldn't cut it. These, as I say, blades can be quite expensive, and they do tend to roll around on your bench. And these, as I say, lovely little knives. I do use them from time to time, but they'll roll around on your bench. But as I say, I can't seem to get on with the blade cut in a straight line. I don't know why. It's probably just me. So there we go. So there's our knives taken care of. The other thing we should think about pretty much straight away when we start thinking about cutting is scissors. So it's always good to have a nice sharp pair of scissors for cutting out decals and stuff like that. So these are really cheap. They're only a couple of £1 on Amazon, and you can see there they're made by Westcott. I think they're 8-inch or something, or 10-inch. I can't remember now. They're 8-inch, and I use them for nothing else other than modelling. So they're always really nice and sharp. So like you've seen me doing those rivet strips, like I'm doing on the Lancaster at the moment, off camera, working with somebody to try and come up with some good decal rivets, and we're getting there. But these are wonderful for cutting those nice long lengths and everything, and they're also good for cutting out big decals. And then you also need a nice little pair for cutting out smaller decals, for getting in those tight little corners and everything, so you don't sort of obliterate. When you've got decals really close together, these blades are a bit thick and chunky for getting in there. So it's always worth having a nice little pair of scissors, or two nice little pairs of scissors, and dedicate them to your modelling and use them for nothing else. So that's my recommendation there. So moving on from scissors, we have cutters. So there are lots and lots of different cutters about. I'm going to show you these obvious different design. You can see these, they're both quite old. These are Tamiya cutters, nippers. You can get trumpeter ones that look very similar, and you can get the God Hand ones, which are very expensive and look very similar. I find these are the best middle of the road nips. I've got some new ones here to show you, because they're not cheap, but they're by no means as expensive as God Hand or anything. They are double-sided, which means they have a blade on both sides. You can get single-sided ones, like the trumpeter ones, but they tend to not last as long. The cheaper ones, I mean, these things I find last a very, very long time, and I really do like them. I'm not a massive fan of the single-sided ones, I must be honest. They have all the adjustments and that on them to get the blade to be exactly right, you know, just sort of stopping in the right place. I'd rather just get these out of the packet and use them. I find them really, really good, and you can get that type, or you can get the long nose type. And then for the cheaper end of the market, you get stuff like this. Now, these are so cheap, they're actually free. You can see here, this company here, Dave Coley's Emporium.co.uk. Great model shop, go and have a look, got some great stock of kits. And generally, if you buy a sort of decent priced kit off him, he'll often put a set of these in the box for you for free. And these things are absolutely brilliant for cutting wire and everything, because they don't tend to damage very easily. But the reason I got these out is these tend to be the cheaper end of the market. And as you can see, these are kind of cast or they're forged or machined from billet or whatever, whereas these are just sheet steel. Okay, so you can see these are just sheet metal, and these are actually cast and machined and everything. So when you see this type, they're generally the cheaper type will be those, and then these are slightly more expensive. I've got them here. These are the two I'm talking about. So you've got the sharp pointed, and you've got sharp pointed side cutter for plastic slim jaw, and sharp pointed side cutter for plastic. So these are the slim jaw. As you can see, the jaws on these are a lot longer. I've got some worn out ones here. So you can see on there, when you look at the back, you can see these are a lot longer, and the actual overall thing is slimmer as well. You can see when you look on that side, the blades are a lot longer on this one than they are on that one. So these are lovely. The slim jaws are really, really nice, but because they're slim, they do tend to be a little weak. So if you start using them on, cutting big bits of sprue and stuff, they will break on you. So if you're after an all-rounder, it's probably best to get these. So this is 74035, and this is 74123. So these are the Tamiya cutters. If you look around, you can find them reasonably priced, but you've got to shop around. I've seen them vary between sort of £16 and £40 for exactly the same thing. I think the general going rate in the UK is about £30. So there you go. But they are they're a very good investment, and they will last you a very, very long time. Don't go cutting metal with them. Don't go cutting great big thick pieces of sprue. Just use them for cutting parts off the sprue, and they'll last you for a long, long time. And they really are very, very good. So that's our cutters taken care of. As I say, there are many, many other brands. I have got the trumpeter ones here I can show you. And these are the single-sided ones. So as you can see, we have on this side, we have like a sharp blade, and on this side it's blunt. It's just ground off flat. And what it is, instead of cutting like this, it's actually shearing it off. So it's very much like, sorry, I'm scratching my nose, I've got an itchy nose today. So it's very much like if you're cutting something with a knife, you put it against your board and you cut it with the knife. That's the same, whereas those type, the Tamiya ones there, are kind of doing that really, you're cutting from both sides. The downside with these is they have to be correctly adjusted, so you can see you've got, well, that's a stop there to bring it back, but you've also got a grub screw and a nut in there, and you have to set them so that when you actually close them up, you're not putting too much pressure, because what you'll do, you need it to come together and stop there. You don't want it to be pushing up tight. Obviously you don't want it to stop here because it won't cut anything, but you don't want it to be pushing up tight because you'll just blunt the blade straight away. So they do cut rather nice, but I prefer the Tamiya ones, to be honest. And with these being trumpeter, when you see the name Master Tools, as you can see there, they tend to be not the best quality, and I find in my experience they tend to not last very long. More about that later. So that's our cutters. So as I say, my favourite is these, the Tamiya Slim Jaw, but that's the 74123. Okay, that's my absolute favourite. But for all-round robustness, availability, and everything, I would recommend these, the 74035. Like I say, there's a lot of different cutters about, and a lot of different opinions to go with them. So we've looked at knives, we've looked at scissors, we've looked at nips. The last thing to look at as far as cutting goes is saws. Now, a lot of you have probably seen saws like this. Again, this is one of those X-Acto type handles, and that just undoes there, and the blade pops out. It sits in that circle in the middle. Okay, so that is great if we're cutting, you know, blocks of wood in half or whatever. You can see it's a nice little, it's a fairly fine tooth blade, and it does have a set, which means the teeth are like that. So as it cuts, it sort of makes a wider groove than the actual blade itself. So for cutting off, you know, if you're doing large resin pieces and you've got large resin plugs to cut off, then that's the kind of tool you want to use. Make sure you wear a mask, make sure you wet it, whatever. But yeah, that's the kind of saw you want to use for that sort of stuff. The next one along is this trumpeter. Again, this is Master Tools, and this is basically it's a knife, and the blades come out. Sorry, not a knife, a saw. And we have 3 different blades here. You can see we've got, I can't remember if it only came with 3 blades, but I've only got 3 blades here. I may have broken 1 or 2, but they are quite good blades. And you can see there was a very slim, there's a slimline long one, and then there's the obvious, the big heavy one, which I use for hacking heavy parts off if I need to. But again, as I say, it's one of these trumpeter tools, and they're not the best, to be honest. You can see on there you've got a hole in the blade, and then on here you have the tiniest little raised portion in there, which is to hold that blade. So the blade goes in there. Okay, go in, blade. The blade goes in, that tiny little raised bit falls into that hole, and then you slide this plastic piece forward and you just jam it there, and it's great. But as soon as you start sawing, you pull it out and the blade just comes out. So I tend to use it very much as a pull saw rather than a push saw, because the blade is quite flexible, especially with these. But I think what I'm going to do in future is actually get rid of that bit of plastic and have a little bolt or something in there and a washer, and just bolt the blade in, and just, you know, and that way it can't keep coming out, because it is a pain. It's an absolute pain. You're trying to cut with it, you know, the blade goes right up in there, as you can see. It's just not good, really. So not really recommended, but it does have its uses. But they are fairly cheap, so you know, you might want to get yourself one of those. And then finally, for me, the best saws are these. These are the ASK saws, and we've got here, this is the symmetrical handle, so you can see this basically is central, so it's a straight line through the middle. And then this one here is the isometrical, which is, as you can see, cranked. So this is really good if you're working on model ships or something, you want to get in and cut something off the deck, then you can still hold it. Whereas with this one, you know, if I want to get in, say I want to get in to cut that Allen key off of here, yeah, I can't get in there because the handle's in the way. With this one I can, because the handle's not in the way, and I can get my fingers under and hold it. All right, so that's my recommendation for saws. They come with an Allen key. They're not overly expensive. The ASK blades are brilliant. There's other blades out there, like the JLC ones and everything, which you've seen me use a lot in the past. But then I was sent these from Art Scale Kit, and I don't really look back now. They're far more, I think they're slightly thicker, but they're not as brittle. The where are they? They're here. The JLC ones, they're very, very brittle and very easy to snap, and these aren't anything like as bad. So there we go. And they also come, you can get lots of different shapes of blades. You've got here, it's just straight, that's a symmetrical, isometrical with the radiused ends, and then symmetrical fine teeth, and then we got a set of 3 in there, and we got the Batman, which has got the round on there, which is, I didn't think of it, but somebody suggested the other day on my Scharnhorst, get down in with that and sort of get that into the end and cut square up to the end, which I think would work really well. Again, you've got these for going around circles and everything, and then you've got a set there, razor saw set, with your 3 different special sizes in there. So really nice indeed. And there's me saying about not breaking them, and I've got one here that's broken. So they will actually break, but they're a lot more flexible, I find, than other brands. So I've tried the ICM ones as well, and they didn't seem so hot, I seem to remember. But they were quite reasonably priced. So there you go. But they all come from the Czech Republic, so there must be a razor saw manufacturing specialist in the Czech Republic. So that's, I believe, is cutting taken care of. As I say, you'll see me use these a lot in my builds. They are amazing, and I believe in the UK these are available from Hanantz. If not, you can get them from artscale.eu, as you can see there if you're in Europe. So there we are, thoroughly recommended. Okay, so we've cut our parts off the sprues with our cutters. We've cleaned up the remaining bits with our cutters and with our knife, and now we need to get rid of the little raised bit, any seams, any flash or whatever. So now we're going to start doing some sanding. Now for the basic end of the market for the beginner, you can get these sort of things. Now these are basically nail file sanders, and these are available in all your chemists and supermarkets in the beauty area and everything. And they're all very, very good, but they don't seem to last as long as the dedicated modelling ones. But for beginners, they're absolutely fine. And if you are on a tight budget and you can only afford one, this is the one I recommend. This is the Slim, I talk about this all the time. This is the Slim Flat, I think it's like a wood material. Here's one here that I use, and I cut the ends into different shapes and everything, as you can see. But they're flat and they're hard. These type here, which are a bit spongy, and you can get some which are really spongy, they're not really that much use for general modelling. But these flat ones that are very hard are great, because you can come along and you can, I've got a piece of plastic card I can show you. So when I sand this, I can sand the edge of this and it stays nice and square. Okay, it's got sharp edges. If I use a soft sponge and sand it, I'll start to round the corners off and everything. So it's good to have these. They're also great for using that way. You can put them down on the mat and you can sand like that, and they don't really sort of conform to anything. They just stay rigid, which is great. So if that's all you can afford, get those, and if you can afford more, get those and something else, because they are absolutely brilliant. I use them a lot on models, believe it or not. I've got the best sanders in the world in Infinia, as far as I'm concerned. I've got the full set here, and I think, you know, in certain instances these are better. So especially when you want to get into little areas like corners and stuff, you know, I come along and cut that off and have a little V on the end and get into corners. They're absolutely brilliant, thoroughly recommended. And as I say, these type, you know, nail files like this, that's very coarse, but it will soon wear down. So, you know, they're absolutely great. They're absolutely fine, no problem at all. But there are better solutions out there when you can afford it, or if you want to take your hobby to that next level. And if you do want to go to the next level, I would recommend this. Now these are all well worn and used and clogged, as you can see. But basically these are available in the UK from Premium Hobbies, and this is the set. And this is the full set of Infini sanders in the holder that they make as well. So I think this works out about £60. I can't remember now. But basically we have all of the general purpose Infini sanders all in this one place. They all come individually packaged. Infini don't make this set. They make the sanders. Premium Hobbies make the setup for you. So I'll start here. These are the Matador sanders. and they're very, very good. They go from 400 grit down to 7,000 grit. They're water washable, so you can clean them out in water. You can use them in water for wet sanding. They are slightly spongy, but they're also very, very hard wearing and very long lasting. 7,000 grit is a bit sort of funny. It's okay for polishing canopies and stuff. I tend to use the 400 more than anything else, and this is my pretty much go-to sander. You see me use this on pretty much everything, so I love them. The other ones I like are the Zebra. Now they go from 100. You can see this one's all clogged up with filler, but these are quite hard, and they're also large and flat, so they're great for, you know, for like sanding flat areas. So I want to clean this edge up. You know, obviously this is 100 grit, so it's very coarse, and as you can see, it's really taking a lot of material off. You can see it all on my fingers there. So very, very good. But they go from 100 down to 800 grit. So this one, we could use this to polish that end up if we want to. So very, very good. Wide, flat. The one downside I would say with these, they tend to wear down very fast. So this is more like a sort of 1,000 grit now. But what you'll find is you'll use it, and in the first couple of times it'll wear down to 1,000, and then it just stays there. It's like if you could plot its grit on a graph, it would sort of start off here at 800. Start off here at 800, and then it would sort of go, you know, in a very short time, it would go up to 1,000, and it will stay at 1,000 and very, very slightly, you know, degrade. And the higher we go, the smoother we go. But yeah, it's sort of like that. I mean, these have been here for over a year. The only one I've replaced in all that time is this one, the 400. And as I say, you know, this has only been replaced for about a week or so ago, and already you can see the difference in colour from there to there. They wear down very quickly, and then they stay. So this is more like an 800 now. But they are very, very good. Here we have the sponges, and these are very, very good. This one starts, I think they start at 400. No, they start at 240, I think. I think this is 240, or the numbers have worn off, but you can see it's fairly coarse. But these are great if you want to get a nice soft edge on things. You can use that, as you can see, and it's taken the edge off. If you want to put a radius on there, you can use that and put a nice radius on there. And obviously that's quite coarse. For cleaning them, I have a piece of an old pair of jeans, and I just wipe them off on there. And that's it. And I've actually seen Plunging Fire Scale Modelling showed us all a little tip the other week. Bloody masking tape sticks to everything. Urgh. So he showed us a little tip. He got some blue tack. He rolled it around in his finger to make it a little bit sticky. And he rolled it over the sander. And it took the grit out, the clogging up of the sander, it took it out. It doesn't seem to be working as well for me. Maybe it's because this is a sponge. But that was what he did. I don't know if it'll work on here. No. It's not working very, obviously it works okay if it's just dry plastic, but if it's anything else, then it clogs. Mr. Servicer is a nightmare for clogging your sanders, so beware, you have been warned. So yeah, these go, I think that's 240 grit up to, barely, I think I can just see the 240 under there. Maybe even 200. And they go all the way up to 4,000, and this is great for polishing your canopies and everything. Quick Shine Gloss Polishing Pad. So that's 4,000, but these come up to 7,000, so, you know. So that's that, and then here on the end we have this is the two triangles at the front, which I've never used. And then we have I think this is 3mm, no, 2mm, 3mm, 5mm and 10mm. And basically this is just a strip of stainless steel which has been photo etched out, and then we've got some double-sided tape on the end that gives you like a little sander for getting into nooks and crannies and stuff. As I say, watch my videos, you'll see me using all of this stuff. You know, I don't need to do a whole complete video on how to use it all, because you'll see me using it all the time. But there we go. So we got the soft back sponges, we got the Zebras on the back there, and the Matadors there, and then these are the PE sanders. So they're available, as I say, from Premium Hobbies. I'm not sure where else in the UK you can get Infinity from. It could well be the Scale Model Shop, I can't remember now. And then you also have available from Premium is these. These are the MIG Ammo. If you need a skinny sander, Phil Flory used to make skinny sanders, and they were absolutely brilliant. Here's one here. This is the green one. This is my favourite, and they're absolutely brilliant. But unfortunately, he stopped making them, and nobody's really picked up the mantlet. Now these are the MIG Ammo ones, and they're very nice, and they're, you know, they're well made and everything. They come in this as a mixed set in this package. But what you will notice, we have 120, 180, 240, and then the one that's missing, 320, and then straight to 1200. It's like, is that, yeah, here we go. There's the 1200. There's the 1500. I've been using this. This must be the this is the 320 here. So you can see we've got this sort of 120, 180, 240, 320, 1200. It's like, where's the 400 and the 600 and the 800? You know, what they should have done was gone sort of, you know, if they just wanted to make a set of 6, they should have sort of perhaps dropped those two and then put a 400 and a 600 in there, and perhaps drop that one and put a 400, 600, 800. I don't know why they've done this. It's just crazy. Why would you go from 320 to 1200? It's just, you know, I mean, MIG Ammo is supposed to be, I mean, Mick Jimenez, this guy here, Mick Jimenez, is one of the best modelers on the planet. You would think he'd know what grade of sander sticks to supply. Clearly not. So yeah, I wouldn't really recommend them, because the one I use the most is 400. I use that one the most, and I use that one the most, and all of my PE sanders here have 400 on them, and it's right in the middle of where this doesn't cover, so I wouldn't bother. So if you do want 400, there you go. Ultimate Modelling Products. There's your 400 grit skinny stick. You see it's exactly the same shape as MIG Ammo. I think UMP were first, to be honest. I think if anyone's copied anyone, I'm not saying anyone has, but if anyone's copied anyone, I think MIG Ammo copied Ultimate. But you can see they're not exactly the same shape. They're not even the same size. But these are very, very good indeed. I've got one here that I've been using and cutting down. Because what you do, you use the ends to get into things, and then the end all gathers up and everything. So you just cut the end off. Or what the other thing you can do, get a pair of old cutters, cut the end off, just like so. So you've got a little square, and then grab yourself a pointed tool of some description, and then just stick the pointed tool in there. Hang on, we're going to use this side. Just stick the pointed tool so it doesn't go all the way through, and then you've got a little sander on the end if you want to get into like little tight corners and stuff. You can if you had an ejector pin in that box, you can get in there and sand away to your heart's content. So that's what they're really good for. But yeah, the UMP skinny sanders, absolutely brilliant. Wendy sent me some of these, which was very, very good of her. I have never bought a UMP product in my life. It's funny, not to say they're not any good, because I'm not saying they're not any good. They are very good. And I really do enjoy using these sanders. And a lot of people, even when the Flory skinny sticks were out, they always swore that these were better. And apparently they've improved them. I believe, don't count me on this, but I believe I was told, please tell me in the comments below if I'm right or wrong, if you get them with the number on, this is the latest upgraded sort of better version. Because they used to just be like the Flory ones. They were sort of fine, super fine, coarse, super coarse, you know, that sort of thing. But they're numbered now. So I've got a feeling these are the new ones. Tell me in the comments what you think. But I know a lot of people love UMP sanders. And I have no issue with these whatsoever. Love them. So that's it as far as sanding goes. Then if you want to get a bit more adventurous, if you've got white metal undercarriage legs or photo etch or whatever, you want to do some filing, you can get yourself a set of these. And these are cheap as chips, and they're not very good, to be honest. But these are sort of your little files, little miniature files. So we've got a round one there, a square one, the flat. We've got the flat on one side, semicircular on that side, and then we've got one here which is the triangular. So you get a little set of those for peanuts, and they're okay, but they do have their limitations. So that's those. And then if you really want to go to town, you can get these. These are the Infini. Again, I keep promoting Infini products because they're bloody brilliant. These are the Infini diamond files. And the beauty of these is they come in two different sizes. So you've got the wide ones here and obviously the narrow ones next to them. Okay, and they're really, really nice. But the beauty of them is they've got very sharp corners, so they're great for getting into corners. But you can also see when you look at them in profile, they're tapered. So they're really good. If you've got a slot, say you've got a slot in your model, which is, you're trying to get a peg and it's too tight, imagine it's going to be a lot smaller. But you can get in there and file it out with this. You can file out the length, you can file out the width. They're really, really good, and they come to a very, very fine point, as you can see. So brilliant for open up slots and stuff like that. In fact, earlier on today, I was doing some work and I was actually trying to carve out a slot with a knife, and I'd completely forgot to use these. So that's one of the problems. If you don't have all the tools to hand all the time, you do forget you've got them. What I do, I've now got a Premium Hobbies sanding stick holder with all my bits and pieces in it. And then for flat surfaces, again, for doing sprue nibs, these things are great. These once again are Infini, and these are the glass files. Now these are the wide ones, obviously, and these are basically just pieces of glass with diamond bonded to them, and they are absolutely brilliant, especially for clear parts. They actually polish clear parts. I will try and show you on here. We can see this edge here is sanded and it's dull. If I file it with this, even though this is the coarsest, this is the medium, this is the coarsest one of the three, you will see that we have now got a shine on there. If I go for the superfine, you can see now it's very, very glossy. So there we go. You can see the sort of finish you get with them. It's awesome. Thoroughly recommended. And the beauty of these is, if I had a sprue nib on here, okay, I can put the file down on it and without any pressure sand like that, and it will take away the sprue nib. As you can see, I'm rubbing it over there. It's not taking any material off at all. Until I start to press, it won't take anything off. So if I had a sprue nib sticking up, I can just come along, straight that over there, file that over there like that. That's it. And then when it goes all smooth, I know the sprue nib's gone. Absolutely brilliant tools. They are amazing. And then there's just basically the same thing, but smaller, which is good for when you want to get into like ladder rungs or in between chassis rails or whatever. Then they're really, really good. So again, thoroughly recommended. I've been told you can get the same thing in like nail bars and stuff like that, or even in supermarkets, I'm guessing, on their beautician's bit. But yeah, thoroughly recommended. Awesome. So that is our sanding and filing bit covered. What are we going to look at next? Okay, so moving on from sort of the tools sort of thing, we can start looking at now the gluey, because we've basically got our parts off the sprue, we've cleaned them up, we've got them all sanded, nice and fitted, and now we need to glue them together. So if you're using polystyrene, you can just use polystyrene cement. You can get your normal sort of Revell contactor, or the glue that comes in your Airfix starter set or whatever, which isn't very good. But then the glues that I would recommend they're not actually glues, they're cements. They don't stick the parts together. What they do is they chemically attack the plastic. They melt it, and then the plastic sort of melds together. It's called melding rather than welding or molding or melting. It's melding. The plastic melts together and you end up with a strong joint. And these are the glues of choice that I would recommend to anyone. This one being number one. Tamiya Extra Thin. Comes in a square bottle, very difficult to knock over. He says knocking it over. And comes with a brush in the lid. You've got a seal in the lid as well. In there you've got a white seal. And absolutely wonderful stuff. Works really, really well. Works with all plastics. The only time I've ever had a problem with this was with that Revell 1/72 scale Hurricane, which it didn't like at all. I had to use the Extra Thin quick setting, which I think is a hotter glue. And then here we have the Tamiya White, which is basically the same sort of jar and everything. And I've changed the brush. It normally comes with a wider brush, but this is just basically a thicker version of the same thing. So we have three different, we have the quick setting, the ordinary Extra Thin, and the white, and they are the three glues that if you're building Airfix or just building plastic models or whatever, that is all you'll ever need. Absolutely fine. You can hold the parts together, you can watch my videos, I've shown you loads of times. You can use capillary action to pull the glue in, you don't have to put the glue on first. Absolutely brilliant, no stringing, awesome. The alternative to that is the Mr. Hobby range. You can see they're a bit dusty because I've been doing a lot of sanding on that Scharnhorst. We've got the Mr. Hobby range, and this is the blue. Okay, you can see the paper's a bit, they're a bit tight in there, so it's ripping the paper off. But this is the Mr. Hobby S, so that's just a normal, and that is like an equivalent for Tamiya Extra Thin. And I sometimes use this because it's got a bigger brush, so if it's a big area, like going around the deck edge of a ship or something, then it's great for that because you get more glue in there rather than having to keep putting the brush on every inch or so. And then you've got the SP, which is basically the quick setting, okay? And then you've got the Mr. Cement Deluxe, which is very much like the Tamiya White. You can see it's just a slightly thicker glue with a bigger brush, great for brushing on first and then putting parts together. And then here we've got one here, this is the SPB, which is the same thing, it's just black. As you can see, the glue is black, so you can see where it's gone. Bit of a gimmick, I'm not even sure if it works very well, but I'll have to give it another try. But there's your three there. I recommend, maybe if you want to get that one, give it a go, but probably a bit gimmicky. You also have these two here, which are MIG Ammo. I don't know what they are. I think MIG Ammo tend to buy things in and rebottle them. I don't think they make a lot of their own product. But that one is certainly, that is very much like the Tamiya White. Don't go doing this at home, kids. You shouldn't go smelling these glues. It's not good for you. No, it's not the same thing. But it's not the same thing at all, but it's the same sort of consistency and it'll do the same job. And then you've got here that's even called Extra Thin. So it's MIG Ammo Extra Thin rather than Tamiya Extra Thin. And again, you've got a brush in there. One of the biggest downfalls of this is, as you can see, the brush is a good, I would say the brush is a good 10-15 millimeters off the bottom. So I don't know what you're supposed to do when you come to the end. Maybe you can pull it down a bit. Nope. So yeah, I don't know how you're going to get the last 50 milliliters out, but that's going to go on there like that. I'm just going to screw that down, and that should now, there we go. So there we go. I guess you just have to use a paintbrush or put a bolt in there or something. But so there we go. So that's the MIG Ammo ones. I've never tried them. I don't know what they're like. I should give them a go. But that one's obviously slower drying than that one. You've also got this one, which I'm not even sure is available anymore. This is basically a very thick Tamiya glue. You can see it's very thick indeed, really stringy, slow drying. So in fact it's probably going off, to be honest. It's so thick. But maybe I should put something in there to revitalise it. But there we go. So that's all your glues for your styrene. And as I say, you've got your Revell contact. I haven't got any to show you, in the little blue tube with the needle. They're really good. The only trouble is the needles keep getting blocked up on them. And then you obviously got your tube glues and everything. If you're gluing photo etch, resin, anything other than styrene, then you need to get yourself some super glue, or CA they call it, cyanacrylate, but generally people call it CA. So you can get like your little cheap, pound shop super glues like this. They come in a little tube. You sort of do the top up and it pierces it. But I wouldn't recommend them for model making. They're cheap. They're the cheapest form of super glue you can get. The problem with them is they will definitely fog clear parts straight away, and they also, once they dry and over time increasingly, they become more and more brittle. So if you glue an undercarriage leg on, say, with this stuff into a resin model, or a metal undercarriage leg into a plastic model, it's just going to snap. Sometimes that has an advantage. If it's an antenna or a pitot tube or something like that, sometimes it's an advantage to have it snap rather than break. But pays your money, takes your choice. So then you can move on to these kind of liquid glues. Now these glues here in a tube, they're like a gel and they're quite thick and they can be a bit stringy. So I tend not to use them. I tend to use these liquid type glues, and you can hear that it's like a, it's like the consistency of the Tamiya White glue. So, and you can get very thin ones as well. So this is just a sort of no-nonsense, off-the-shelf super glue, instant bomb, multi-purpose. Yeah, great, brilliant, works very well. Has a very short shelf life. It doesn't tend to last very long. A lot of people say keep it in the fridge. I wouldn't keep it in the fridge once you've opened it, because super glue, as we all know, is cured by moisture. So if you that's why you blow on it sometimes. It's the moisture in your breath that cures it. If you've opened it, I wouldn't put it in the fridge. If it's not opened, if you buy it and it's a sealed top here, then it's safe to put in the fridge. But like with these VMS glues, like I'm going to show you next, when you buy these, the top is open, and there's a, I don't know if you can see it down in there, there's like a metal rod that goes in the top. So I wouldn't actually put these in the fridge, because they tend to, you know, you may get some moisture getting in there and it'll cure it. Now, these are my favourite super glues by far that I've ever discovered ever on the planet. They're a company called VMS. Okay, you can see there, Vantage Modelling Products, or Vantage Modelling Productions. They're imported by Albion Hobby, so if you want to get some, get in touch with them. I know they're stocked by Premium Hobbies and also by Scale Model Shop. But this one here, Flexi 5 KCA, this is a clear glue, and it's about the same consistency as this one, so it's not totally thin, but it's very, very useful. You can see this one, they make it for, they're calling it 4PE. But you can use this for anything. You don't have to use it on PE. This one here is called XT Thin. It's very thin. Generally with super glue, rule of thumb, the thinner they are, the quicker they set. So this one here will take a lot longer to set than this one here. Okay, because this one's thin, this one's quite thick. But these VMS glues, the beauty of them, which you can see on here, 10th of the 2nd, 22. This glue is nearly 2 years old, and it's as good now as at the day it was made. These glues here, once they're sort of beyond 6 months, they're kind of, I mean, this one here, the expiry was the 8th of the 6th, 23. So that means that was probably made about 8 months ago. So that'll be going off. And to be honest with you, I've actually refilled this one with another glue, because I had another one where another problem with these glues is they just glue up on the top there, glue the lids on, then when you unscrew the lid, it just mashes the top up. So that's actually, glue in there is newer than the pot. So bear that in mind. But they do tend to go off very quickly. These seem to last for a very long time. Here's my other two favourites. This is my ultimate favourite, the VMS Flexi 5K CA Black Thin. The reason I like this stuff is because it's black, you can see where it's going. 2, it's thin, so it penetrates it capillaries into joints very nicely. But 3, it doesn't dry immediately. So you've got 2 big advantages of that. You can put a part in position and then maneuver it and get it sort of slid around to the right place, and it won't tend to stick at all until you push it. So if it's like a plate going on the side of a ship or something, you can move it around and move it around, and then once it's in position, just give it a little prod, and that'll be enough to tack it in the middle. And then once it's glued, the glue around the outside will remain wet for a long, long time. It stays wet in your pot for a long, long time. You go around with a cotton bud and just mop it all up, which is absolutely brilliant. This one here is the Flexi 5 KCA again, and this is just black, so it's the same thing but thicker. And the beauty of these as well, they're all of them, you can see in the name they say Flexi 5K. The biggest downside of these is they stick straight away, which is great. They're clear, which is okay if you want something clear, but they will fog clear parts, bear that in mind. As will all of these super glues if you're not careful. But you have to bear in mind that this goes very brittle over time. So as I say, if you've got something like an undercarriage leg or a tail plane or something you've glued on with this and you knock it, it will break it off. It will crack very, very easily. So remember that if you're assembling a resin model and you're gluing it all together with super glue, you know, your fuselage halves and that, you don't want them cracking. So you'd be much better off using one of these, and they do a specific one for resin. I'm going to try and get some more in to do some tests with it, but they are absolutely awesome. I really do like using them very, very much indeed. As you will know if you watch my builds, I use this for filling all my ejector pin marks. I use it for seam filling and everything now. Absolutely love the stuff. Can't recommend it enough. It's awesome. Best super glues on the market. Case closed. Without doubt. They are absolutely awesome. So we've covered glues. Okay, sorry, we haven't covered glues. I forgot about these. So these are basically two of the major use white glues. This is Big Ammo Ultra Glue and Micro Crystal Clear. These are great because they dry, as this one says, they dry crystal clear. They're very strong. I do think maybe this one is a bit stronger than this one, but they do dry crystal clear, and they're very good for like gluing clear parts. If you've been watching my Hatchet Partworks build, I've been gluing the clear windows in with this stuff, and it works really, really well. I haven't tried crystal clear on that model, but I may try it. You know, it's basically the same product. They're both white glues, but they do seem to be better quality than just your ordinary white glues. There's also this one here, VMS Transfer Fix, and I find it a little bit thick. It's a bit thick and gloopy, and it's very, very difficult to get out because it is so thick, and you've only got a little nozzle. So I've not really used it, but it's great for gluing clear parts and stuff. Having said that, I try as much as I can to use Tamiya Extra Thin to glue my clear parts, so I get a weld rather than a glue. It saves any cracking going forward, and if you want to do any seam work afterwards, it's easier than if you use these. It's easier to get in there and fill. There's also this one here, GS Hypo Cement. This has the added advantages. It got added advantage. Sorry, it's got a little nozzle on the top, and you can see you get a tiny little amount of glue out in each application. You can see there's some tiny little spots of glue on there. And it's quite sticky straight away, so it's quite good at for gluing clear parts on, because it sort of sticks them straight away, whereas this stuff doesn't sort of stick straight away. But you've got to try and then get that little needle to go back into there, which is not easy when you're as blind as a bat like I am. There we go, we got it in. That'll go on there, and this is actually about 3 or 4 years old now, and it's still absolutely fine. So I don't think it's that cheap, but it is very, very good, and again, it dries crystal clear. I think a lot of jewellery makers use this for gluing beading and stuff, but again, it's a great glue for doing clear parts. So I think that's it with our glues. You have this one here, Contactor Clear. I wouldn't bother. I'd get these instead, far better. And then you have, this is Revell Contactor. What I do, I decant it rather than have it in a little plastic thing with the metal tube. I've decanted it into a Tamiya Extra Thin, so I can use it in there if I want to. So so that's that one, and that is really about it for our glues, I think. Yes, that's it for our glues. Oh, there's this one here, MEK. This is very old now. It's obviously a very good bottle because it hasn't all evaporated. Very, very fast setting and very, very poisonous. So be a little bit careful with that. But there we go. Right, so that's it for our glues. Let's look at something else. Okay, so finally, I'm going to look at measuring. I'm not going to cover scribers and drills and paintbrushes and all that sort of stuff in here. This is just going to be all your your basic tools, and sort of working up from your basic tools to the sort of luxury stuff, if you like. So if you can afford to jump straight in and go and get yourself Tamiya nippers and stuff, then fill your boots. If you've built a few models and you want to get some better tools in, go and get yourself some Tamiya nippers. But if you're just starting out, I'm showing you the basics and working my way up. Measuring is always something that you're going to have to do. Quite often you'll find with models, they'll tell you, mask this 15 millimeters from this window, or measure this and drill a hole, or whatever. So measuring is quite an important little subject. And the one recommendation I can make, if you are going to be doing some modelling and stuff, get yourself a steel rule. This is just a 6-inch steel rule. It's marked with metric on one side, imperial on the other. You've got 0.5 millimeter segments here, 1 millimeter there, and then you've got all your 30 seconds, 64ths and 16ths on here. So basically you're really only ever going to use this side, because a lot of kits now call it in millimeters. They don't really use imperial anymore. But it's always good to have something like this, because it's steel, it won't wear out. 2, it acts as a good square. You'll see me using this in the Flying Fortress builds, and it's good for if you need to square something up. It's good as a square because the end is always going to be square. You can check it with a genuine square if you're not quite sure. So we got a genuine square here. Let's have a look. Yes, we have, and we can check the end of that is square. and lo and behold, it's not. So there we go. So it's not perfectly square, it is just out. Either that or my square is out. No, my square is not out, it is actually the rule that is out. So there we go, but it's only just, it's like nothing. You know, good to use as a square, and also because it's steel it won't wear out. I've got these are what I got from my last company I worked at. Rollermatic is a grinding machine manufacturer, and they're aluminium, which is great because if you want to measure something, like if I want to measure around this bottle, I can just bend the rule around the bottle. But the trouble is with these, when you start using them and then you start, you know, scribing along the side of them or using them for cutting, you will often find little slithers of aluminium, and what you're doing is you're removing your straight edge, so it's not a straight edge anymore. So it's good to have something steel to cut against, but also, you know, something like this is also much easier to see when you're getting older like me, rather than the, you know, the all aluminium one. It's much easier to see the 1mm demarcations on there than it is on there. Certainly don't bother with anything like this unless of course you're just looking at a drawing and we want to look through something to see, you know, spot to spot whatever it is, but don't use it for scribing or cutting or anything like that. Certainly not. But you know, you really don't want to be using a plastic rule for any of that. And again, you know, you get stuff like this stainless steel rule. It's narrow, it's got the you know, you can get into smaller gaps with it, but the trouble is with it, it's quite difficult to see as well if you're blind as a bat like me. So I would recommend to anybody who's getting into modelling, doing a little bit of scratch building, whatever, I would recommend one of these, hands down. They'll last you a lifetime because you're not going to be hammering it, you're not going to be getting it wheelie. They're absolutely brilliant. It's called a digital caliper. Some people call it a vernier. It's not a vernier because it's digital. A vernier has a sliding scale. So basically, it's a digital caliper. You don't have to get a Mitutoyo. You can get cheap ones and they'll be absolutely fine. But they're so handy to use. It's like if I want to know how wide that is, I can look at this and I can put the end of the rule on there, which you should never do. Always use a line to measure from. Don't use the end because you never know if the end has been worn off. So I can see on there that's 11.7, 11.8 millimeters or something like that. As I can get this, bang, it's 11.67. Okay, so and I can also check if it's parallel. So it's 11.84 there. And it's 11.69 there. So there you go. Our rule is not even parallel. In fact, it's 11.74 there. And it's 11.884 there. So it's not even parallel. Mind you, it's got something on there, so it's not even parallel. But yeah, and also if you are doing something like you're marking on a ship, say you want to mark some positions on there, and you know that sort of you want to mark your what do you call the bulkhead positions, and you know that everyone is 58.35 millimeters, you can do one there and you can just make a scratch, and then you can come along there, make a scratch, come along there, make a scratch, and use them as dividers. As you can see, absolutely brilliant. Really handy tool to have. You know, if you want to measure, if you want to know what size the bore of that is there, you can get in there and you can measure that, 28.6. If you want to know if you're going to fill a hole in your model, you've got a hole in the model you want to fill, you can get in there. 3.9, that's 4 mil, so I need some 4 mil rod to fill that hole. Or if I'm going to put an axle through there, I need 4 mil. You know, you've got your drills out. You know, you've got your drills out like this. You sort of get a couple out. You know, here we go. We get a couple out which are fairly close to each other, and you've got them mixed up, and you don't know which is which. So you know you've got 0.85 and 0.9 there, or is that 0.8 and 0.85? 0.8 and 0.85. So I can grab my caliper, and that's 0.88. So that's probably 0.9, and that one's 0.77. So that one was in the wrong hole anyway. So we've got these all mixed up. So what size is this one here? That one's 0.73, so I'm guessing that is 0.75. That one was 0.77, so that's near as damn at 0.8 then. and this one is 0.89, so that's 0.9 really. So have we got the 0.85 in the 0.9 hole? Yes, we have. That's 0.86. So there's our 0.85. Oh, there's our 0.9. So as you can imagine, unless I had a micrometer, that is a fantastic tool for measuring stuff like that. For measuring, you've got a box full of brass rod, you don't know what size it is. Bang, 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 bang. You can measure with this. Thoroughly recommended for model making. And then you can use it on your car. You can use it in all sorts of things. I would not be without one of these. I've got a couple in the garage that I use. I've got this one up here. I've got another one which is a vernier. It's not digital, which is handy when I've got no batteries. So yeah, absolutely awesome. So that's covered measuring. And that, I think I'm going to say, is, well, another thing you could get is a little square. Very handy little thing to have. You can get them for peanuts these days. That's the beauty of these days. You know, everybody moans about the cost of living, how expensive everything is. Believe me, it's not. Okay, you can go on Amazon now and buy an airbrush for about £7.50. 10 years ago, you couldn't get an airbrush for 60 quid. 20 years ago, you couldn't get an airbrush for £1,000, I don't think. I could be right in saying. You know, things today are very, very cheap. Something like this a few years ago would have been over £100. You can get them for 20 quid now. You know, they really are. Got some resin on there. They really are. You know, things really are very, very cheap. I'm gonna have to get that cleaned up. So there we go. So that's been a quick video for you on tools. Hope you've enjoyed it. Any questions, comments or whatever, pop them down below. As I said, I haven't covered drilling, I haven't covered scribing, because that's all been covered in other videos or will be. I know I've done scribing, I can't remember if I've done drilling or not, but that's a whole new subject on its own. So I will see you all soon. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this little snippet. Bye for now.